In a recent interview, a developer from GOG, the platform that just released the original Resident Evil titles on PC, talked about how hard it was to get Capcom's approval. He said Capcom was hesitant, claiming they already had superior versions of those games, referring to the modern remakes.
That was actually their main counter-argument when we were trying to bring back the classic games. They were like, okay, we have all of those remakes. It's already like superior experience, right, to those games. So they didn't really see the value in bringing back the classical versions, the vanilla ones. It took a lot of convincing that, hey guys, there is an audience that has a lot of memories about those games, right? And they would love to be able to experience exactly the same game again, right? And so thankfully we were able to convince them. They trust us into, working on one of their biggest IPs, if not the biggest.
Now this is super unfortunate to find out, because Capcom saying that the remakes are more superior to the original almost seems like they're saying that the original Resident Evil games are obsolete and not the go-to way to play the games or experience those stories, which that's just crazy to me. How can you discredit your own original creation? How can a remake of a game that has cut content be superior? That doesn't make sense. GOG actually had to convince them that people still wanted to play these classics. And they were right, because though re-releases are getting overwhelmingly positive reviews, 94% to be exact, Capcom going out of their way and claiming that the remakes of Resident Evil are more superior is a slap in the face to the originals, and it makes them come off as very disconnected to their fan base. These original titles are what made Resident Evil special in the first place. One could argue and say that Resident Evil 1 Remake is superior to the original, and I'd agree with you there. I feel like that is the exception to the rule. However, Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, claiming they are more superior to the original, I would have to disagree. Now, Resident Evil 2 Remake, it's pretty solid, pretty close to the original, but it has some changes, has some things tweaked here and there, some things taken out, some other aspects shortened. Resident Evil 3 is dog shit compared to the original. For you or anyone to think that Resident Evil 3 Remake is a more superior experience to original Resident Evil 3, see someone, seek help. Now, obviously, the remakes, they're updated graphics, updated mechanics, controls, it plays smoother, it runs smoother, sure. But newer doesn't always mean better, especially when you're cutting stuff from the game. The remake is nowhere near superior to the original counterpart. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis OG has so much more replayability, so much more content. I mean, and it has the Mercenaries mode, Mad Jackal. It has the Clock Tower section. It has the Raccoon City Park section. It has Jill actually going to the Raccoon Police Department. Whereas in the remake, it has Carlos going to the RPD for whatever reason, which I just hated. They took that away from us. They took away Jill going into the new updated version of the RPD. Crazy. Resident Evil 3 Remake does not have the Clock Tower. It has a fight outside the Clock Tower, but doesn't have you entering the Clock Tower, exploring the Clock Tower. That's a whole section, whole environment, whole vibe straight snatched out of the game. As well as the Raccoon City Park. It's just not there. Also, the Gravedigger boss fight, not there. How can a remake that scrapped so much of its original counterpart be more superior to the original? Calling the remake superior assumes that they replace the originals, but they don't. They are different, made with different design philosophies. The PS1 era Resident Evil titles were built around tension, fixed camera angles, tank controls, and resource management that forced you to think before every move. Those limitations created the horror. Every camera cut made you uneasy. Every step into the unknown felt dangerous. Now compare that to the remakes, gorgeous lighting, smooth controls, and cinematic presentation. It's impressive, but it's not the same kind of fear. It's more action horror than psychological dread. So no, the remakes are not better, they are different. And that difference is what matters. As mentioned before, GOG proved that there is still a real audience for the originals with their 94% positive reviews. Thousands of players jumped in to relive or discover for the first time what survival horror really used to feel like. And I encourage those who haven't even played or are kind of intimidated by the originals because of the tank controls and the fixed camera angles, give it a shot. It's a whole different experience, and that's the key here. The originals are a different experience compared to the remakes. They're not better, it's not worse, it's not more superior. It's just a different experience. It's a whole different vibe. The original Resident Evil games just have a whole different atmosphere, different environments, the music. Like, that's one thing the remakes lacked. Even though Resident Evil 2 Remake, if you paid for it, you got the original soundtrack, which that does some heavy lifting for the remake to give you that similar vibe. The Resident Evil 3 Remake also missed out on was the original soundtrack. It's hard to explain, you have to experience it for yourself. You have to. Treating the original games as obsolete just because they're old is just tasteless, and it misses the point entirely. These aren't just old games, they are the foundation of Resident Evil. Even decades later, fans are still speedrunning, modding, and talking about the originals. Entire YouTube channels are built around preserving the style of gameplay and design. And that's not just nostalgia. That's proof that those mechanics and that atmosphere still work to this day.
It proved that there is an audience for that type of games, so it doesn't matter if the game was remade or not. The classical versions, you know, the versions we all remember from my childhood, they still hold a lot of value.
I've seen countless games on Steam from like independent developers that are inspired from the original Resident Evil design mechanics, the fixed camera angles, the tank controls, and the certain vibe and atmosphere that you would see from the original Resident Evil titles. There's still games to this day that take inspiration from those original Resident Evil designs. So that tells you that people still want that kind of game. But in this day and age in the gaming industry, Capcom's mindset isn't totally shocking. The remakes sell millions of copies, they look incredible, they play great, and bring in new audiences. So from a business standpoint, of course they'd call them superior. But commercial success doesn't always make something artistically better. And the moment you start treating your history like a replaceable product, you lose part of your creative identity. If Capcom truly wants to honor Resident Evil, they should embrace both sides of its legacy, not pit them against each other. And to be fair, the remakes do a lot right. They modernize controls, improve accessibility, and introduce new players to the universe. They're some of the best remakes in gaming. But again, that doesn't make the originals inferior. It makes them complementary. You can love both, just don't erase one to sell the other. Personally, I think calling the remake superior was tone deaf. It ignores what made Resident Evil, Resident Evil. The originals are living proof that horror doesn't need cutting-edge technology. Just brilliant design, atmosphere, and tension. So here's my question to you. Which version do you think captures the essence of Resident Evil better? The original or the remake? Drop your take in the comments, we'll have a discussion down below. Oh, and Capcom? Maybe next time, just let the fans decide on what's superior?